Welcome to Game Fondue Reviews. In this video, we're going to take a look at Battle Line. Battle Line is a two-player card game designed by Reiner Knizia that is meant to simulate an ancient battle. Let's jump right in with the description of the rules, see a few example turns being played, then I'll be back for some closing remarks.
This is a setup for Battle Line. You just lay out the 9 flags in the middle and leave a little bit of space so people can play cards next to them. Deal each player a hand of 7 cards from the regular deck. Shuffle the rest of the cards and shuffle the 10 tactics cards and make a stack out of them as well. On a player's turn, he or she just plays one card, either a standard card or a tactics card, next to one of the face-up flags here. And then depending on what version of the game you're playing, they can either claim the flag at that time or wait until the beginning of their next turn. I prefer the quote-unquote advanced rules, which requires you to claim at the beginning of your turn. So that's what we're going to be looking at here. Other than, it's a very, very minor difference. Other than that, it's exactly the same game. At the end of a turn, you draw back up to 7 cards. And let's talk about playing a card. So next to each slot, or each flag, there are 3 theoretical spaces on each side of the board. So for instance, this would be a full area. You can only play next to unclaimed flags, so if somebody had already claimed this flag, and I only had 2 cards there, even though there's normally room for 3, I wouldn't be able to play there, which can be a little bit tough because space is very scarce. So the strength of your 3 cards is determined by what formation they're in and what their sum is. So what I mean by that is the absolute strongest combination of cards you can have is a straight flush, if you will. It's 3 cards of the same color, but in a row. And they don't have to be played in a row. So for instance, 5-4-3, or 5-3-4, pardon me, is exactly the same as playing them 3-4-5. So that's incredibly strong. A player can beat that with the same type but a higher sum. So for instance, a 6-5-4 would be superior to this. The next type of formation is 3 of a kind. So 8-8-8, for instance, is 3 of a kind, and that of course would beat 7-7-7 and so on, but lose to 9-9-9 and 10-10-10. After that is 3 cards of the same color. So here's just a 10-7-2, but again, it follows the same rules about sums. So if the other player had a 9-5-6, even though 10 is the highest card here, 10 plus 7 plus 2 is 19, whereas 9 plus 5 plus 6 is actually 20. So that would be the superior group and able to claim that flag. The last real formulation is just consecutive numbers. So right here is 4-5-3, which counts as a 3-4-5. And again, same rules of sum. This is if, not all of the cards are the same color, in which case that's very powerful. And if you just kind of have a random group of cards, which certainly can happen, it's just the sum of those cards. So this would be worth 16, but lose to any formation. Players can only collect a flag when they're able to prove that their group of 3 cards is greater than the other group of 3 cards. This is obviously very easy to do if all 3 cards are played on both sides, because they can just say, well, 20 is greater than 19. I prove that I am victorious. However, sometimes it can be a little trickier. Like, for instance, if this player plays a second 8 here, this player would actually be able to prove that there's no way for him to exceed him. Ties favor the player who played the cards first. So if you play the last 8 here, for instance, you would lose even though you've matched. So in this player's turn, because this 8 is already face up, he could use that as information to say, well, the best you could do is play a 10, because all 6 8s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are already on the board. But even if this was in a player's hand, he wouldn't be able to use that as information, even if it's his own hand and he knows it for a fact. There's no way for this player to do anything because there's no formation, that could exceed 3 8s from this position. The best he could hope to do would be to tie, so he can prove that he cannot be exceeded. And depending if you're playing the advanced game or the standard game, we're going to play through the advanced game, you have to prove at the beginning of your turn. I prefer it that way because it gives the tactics cards a chance to do something. So at the end of your turn, you draw back up to 7 cards. You can either draw from the regular draw stack, just numbers, or you can draw from the tactics. And these all have special abilities like a wild or things of that nature. The one restriction of tactics cards is you can only ever play 1 more than your opponent. So even if you have 10 of these in your hand, well, which isn't exactly possible, but let's just say you did, and you played 1, so all of a sudden you have 3 8s, which would be strange because you would still lose because you played it second. You could never play another one of these till your opponent played at least 1, because he's played 0 and you've played 1. That's the maximum amount more that you can play than your opponent. So there's definitely some strategy in when to use your tactics cards. Let's get cracking with the example playthrough. We're going to start with the player closest to the camera here. So he's going to lead off with a yellow 4 over here, and then he can draw from either a deck. He chooses to draw from the standard deck. Now it's this player's turn. he's going to start over on this corner with a nice purple 2, and he's going to do the same thing. So it's going to go back and forth like this for a little while, and we'll jump back in when things get a little more heated, which won't take long. Welcome back. It is now this player's turn, and this player's just played this last 9 here. If it was the basic game, he would immediately have been able to prove that these 2 1s here couldn't beat him, because the best card he can play is a 1, and 3 1s is worse than 3 9s. But in the advanced game, he has to wait till the beginning of his next turn, which is a little more interesting, because if this was claimed, this player wouldn't be able to play here. So he decides to play this card, which is going to serve 2 functions at once. First of all, we know he's going to lose that, but we knew that anyway. But over here, he has 1 2 3, or 3 2 1 in the same color. And there was a hope for this player that he could beat that with a 2 3 4 in orange. Even though this player had in his hand, he could not use that to prove until it was on the board. So now it's on the board. So at the beginning of his next turn, he's hoping to prove this as well. So he draws back up to 7, and now it's this guy's turn, and he realizes, oh no, I've lost this, but he can prove this because these 3 9s are better than that. So he decides he wants to play a card here that he doesn't have much of a use for before that space goes away. So he just throws this yellow 2 over here and draws back up to 7. Then this guy's turn, he proves that this 3 2 1 is better than this ever could be. So unfortunately for this player, he's never going to be able to play in this 3rd slot. Welcome back. We're pretty much at the end of the game here. It's going to be this player's turn. The regular draw deck is totally empty, but there's still some tactics cards that have yet to be drawn. This player actually played 1 tactics, as did this player, using a wild. So each player's eligible to play 1. He has 2 cards in his hand. He only has 1. Beginning of his turn, he's going to claim this because 3 9s is better than a 1 1 5. And then for his turn, he's going to throw this wild over here. He's going to try to win this with a 3 4 5 green to beat these 10 10 10 elephants. And he draws another tactics card. It's this guy's turn, and he's going to play a tactics on this space as well. It disables all formations, and what it does is whoever has the highest sum is the victor, which obviously 30 is tough to beat. This would become a 10. You don't have to say it at the time of, so it would be up to 17. So he's going to draw 1. And both players have played 2 tactics, so tactics are totally eligible. Unfortunately for this player, there's no extra space here to play anything. So he has one other place he can play, and that is over here. So he's got to lay a card down here, and he's going to go with a red 5. And draw. So this player claims this because 10 10 10 is a higher sum than anything he could possibly have since formations are disabled. And then over here, he's in trouble because there's 3 5s, but on the board there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All of the 6s have been laid out. Unfortunately for him, he wasn't able to get 3 in a row. Neither was the other player. So he doesn't have a great deal of options here. He's probably going to lose this one because the best he can do is lay down an 8. So it's that player's turn after this guy draws. Of course, the last card in the deck. And he claims this space because 5 5 5 is supreme, and he's got 5 and won the game.
Battleline is my go-to game for introducing new players to 2-player gaming. If they're not sure what they want to play or what they want to try, we're going with Battleline. It is so easy to teach. You just play a card, draw a card, but by even the 4th, 5th turn, which happens very quickly, it gets unbelievably tense. You know, there's always these considerations. Do I hold out for this? If I commit to this now, somebody can beat me really easily. What should I do? And it just makes for a great experience. A more experienced player is probably going to beat a newer player, but everybody seems to enjoy this game because there's a lot of decisions going on all the time, and that is Battleline. If you're into any 2-player gaming at all, I strongly, strongly recommend this game. Thanks for watching.